Welcome to the debate. Have you ever tried to buy a car when your old one was already towed to the junkyard?
Oh, yeah, you usually end up paying literally whatever the dealer asks.
Exactly, because you have no options. And today, we're examining the psychological leverage of the Plan B, or, what negotiation wonks call your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Right, it's a fundamental concept.
It is, and the conventional wisdom is that the most dangerous thing you can bring to a negotiation table is a deadline with no alternative. My stance is that meticulously preparing this backup plan generates the genuine confidence you need to secure a profitable deal.
And I take the contrasting view. The inherent readiness to walk away and explore alternatives can actually undermine the deep commitment required to push through difficult deadlocks. It really begs the question, does that safety net actually change how carefully you walk?
Well, entering a high-stakes discussion without a BATNA is, frankly, it's fundamentally reckless. We're not just talking about leverage here. We're talking about actual brain chemistry.
Right, the neurological response.
Yeah, exactly. When you lack a backup, your brain treats the negotiation like a survival situation. Your amygdala fires up, pushing you into a fight-or-flight response. And that literally narrows your cognitive bandwidth.
So you just can't see the whole picture.
You really can't. You feel pressed for time, and that pressure leads directly to hasty defensive decisions. But a robust Plan B acts as a neurological circuit breaker.
A circuit breaker. That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, it removes the existential threat of failure, allowing your prefrontal cortex to objectively analyze the deal in front of you. You aren't just protected, you are cognitively optimized.
Look, the logic of having options is sound, of course. Meticulous preparation is standard practice. But the psychological framing of a BATNA can actually be a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, if you enter a room explicitly primed to walk away, like if you train yourself to see every failure as just a pivot to a new opportunity, you strip away the absolute necessity required to forge a tough agreement.
But isn't that lack of absolute necessity a good thing?
Not always. Because when the dialogue becomes grueling, your brain takes the path of least resistance. You might choose to explore a new solution elsewhere, rather than doing the hard, deeply uncomfortable work of fixing the current one. You essentially replace commitment with convenience.
But that convenience is exactly what provides clarity. By having a viable alternative, you remain calm and avoid feeling trapped.
Right, but
Wait, let me just give an example. If you're listening to this and you're prepping for a salary negotiation tomorrow, having another job offer in hand doesn't mean you want to leave your current company.
sure, you might prefer to stay.
Exactly. It just means your judgment isn't clouded by the fear of unemployment. You have the leverage to ask for what you're actually worth, evaluating their counteroffer completely objectively.
I come at it from a different way. Does feeling untrapped simply mean you have one foot out the door from the very beginning?
I wouldn't say that.
Think about any massive corporate deal, like the AOL-Time Warner merger. The initial negotiations are brutal, and integration is even harder. True negotiation requires a shared, almost binding commitment to finding a path through the friction.
Right, there has to be effort.
Exactly. If you don't feel a little bit trapped by the necessity of making this specific deal work, you might just be a tourist at the table.
I hear that, but I think you're confusing not being desperate with having one foot out the door. Being desperate makes you a hostage to the negotiation.
A hostage?
Yes, because you have no other choice. A BATNA simply means you are a volunteer.
But what happens when that volunteer hits a wall? That very lack of desperation is exactly what causes deadlocks to fail.
Wait, how does a lack of desperation cause failure?
Because if you hit a massive structural issue in the terms and you aren't desperate to fix it, you'll just take the easy way out. The standard advice says a Plan B offers alternatives to explore new solutions.
Which it does.
But does that mean resolving the deadlock with the person sitting across from you? Or does it mean abandoning the negotiation altogether? If your way to move forward is just a pivot to your alternative, you haven't overcome the deadlock. You've just used your escape hatch.
But walking away is sometimes the most rational, beneficial way to resolve a deadlock. If the terms no longer serve your interests, staying at the table just to prove you have the grit to endure friction is, well, it's irrational.
Is it, though?
It's the sunk cost fallacy in action. A strong backup strategy turns a deadlock into a diagnostic tool. It tells you when a deal is dead so you don't waste more of your resources on it.
That assumes a perfectly rational actor, though, one who can hold the alternative in their mind without letting it soften their grip on the primary goal.
Most prepared negotiators can do that.
I disagree. If you view your BATNA as an equally viable path, your drive to secure the current profitable agreement naturally wanes.
Not if the BATN is used correctly. Think of a trapeze artist executing a complex midair catch.
Okay, I'm following.
It's only because they know the safety net is beneath them that they have the physical confidence to launch themselves into the most complex, high-flying maneuvers. The net doesn't make them want to fall.
Right.
It frees them to perform at their absolute highest capacity without the paralyzing fear of disaster.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered what happens when modern negotiation culture frames falling into the net as a valuable learning opportunity rather than a failure?
A learning opportunity?
Yeah. If our trapeze artist sees bouncing off the net as a totally valid alternative to catching the bar, their drive to successfully execute that specific catch is diluted. The net makes the fall acceptable.
Well, to summarize our positions in light of this discussion, I maintain that a deeply researched Plan B is the absolute foundation of confidence. It turns the high-stakes risk of negotiation into a controlled environment where profitable agreements are possible.
Because you weren't panicking.
Precisely because your brain isn't hijacked by panic. The goal isn't to look at the safety net while you're negotiating. The goal is to know it's there so you can maintain steady eye contact with the person across the table.
And I reiterate that while preparation is undeniably necessary, the readiness to walk away requires careful psychological management.
Fair enough.
You have to ensure your BATNA doesn't become a premature escape hatch from deeply challenging yet ultimately rewarding negotiations.
What we certainly converge on, though, is the fundamental premise that you cannot step up to the table blind. Meticulous preparation is absolute.
Without question. I mean, the divergence is purely in how you manage the psychology of that preparation once the talking starts.
It's a vital reminder that strategic advice always carries psychological weight. And there are multiple angles to explore when it comes to the mechanics of preparation. We leave you to consider your own approach the next time you sit down at the table. Does the security of your backup plan make your negotiations more resolute, or does it make you just a little too willing to let go?